For great Pokemon TCG product and prices, check out ccgcastle.com.
What's up, Pokemon fans? I'm Professor K for the Pokemon Evolutionaries, and it's time for another Deck Tech Thursday. Now, this is the last Deck Tech before the Athens Regionals start in 2 days. So I wanted to make sure that you guys have a look at a very, very good deck. Probably the best Yveltal build for Athens, considering what happened in Dallas. Dallas saw a lot of Mega Gardevoir and Mega Mewtwo. And the problem is that Yveltal players started to cut certain cards out of their deck to, I guess, add consistency and strength more so than it already was. Now, the problem with that is that Yveltal was fine beforehand. Changing the deck up was kind of a meta call, predicting something that didn't happen, and it allowed the rise of these mega decks to come in. So I think one of the best plays right now for Athens is going to be Yveltal Garb, but it's going to be a version that I will be showing you guys here in just a moment. Obviously, you know, the deck is really, really strong. It's still considered the best deck in the format amongst the top players. You ask them, what is the best deck in format? They're going to say Yveltal. Some version of it, one way or the other. This version, I think, is going to be perfect going into Athens based on the fact that Mega Gardevoir is super hyped right now, and so is Mega Mewtwo. So I'm going to show you guys a little bit here to give you an idea of what kind of build that I would recommend putting together to do well in Athens. So we're going to start off here with the usual, which is going to be 3 copies of Yveltal EX. Evil Ball is the attack that is just so good. Even all the way back to when it first was printed in XY and it was partnered with Darkrai EX. So strong. Evil Ball does 20 damage plus 20 more damage times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. It is just overpowered. It's so good. You don't even need to attach that much energy to yourself to make it super powerful, and you can power it up really, really quickly. So Yveltal EX is going to be a main attacker. Now, this is why a lot of the decks fell off, I think, at Dallas Regionals, and would probably benefit you more than anything going into Athens. That is going to be 3 copies of Fright Knight Yveltal from Breakthrough. So this Yveltal has an ability called Fright Knight. As long as this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, each Pokemon tool card in play has no effect. So what is this going to do in your Mega matchups? Well, it's going to shut off that Spirit Link. So when your opponent goes to Mega Evolve, they are going to have to pass their turn if this is in the active position. So it's very, very important that Fright Knight Yveltal is your main start as many times as you can anyway. If you can't, then you can't. It's just one of those things. But Pitch Black Spear is also a great attack. If you go second and you manage to get off a Pitch Black Spear for 60 damage to the active and 60 to the bench on a Gardevoir player that's just placed down a Shaman, you got 60 on their Gardevoir, 60 on their Shaman, and then they can't Mega Evolve unless they pass their turn. So if they choose to Mega Evolve, they pass their turn, you're going to knock out that Shaman on the bench, and you're going to put another 60 on their, or not, sorry, not 60. It's going to be 40 because of the resistance. It's going to go 40 and 40. That's still 80 damage, putting you within range of an Evil Ball fairly easily, at least in enough time. But mainly what you're going to want to do is knock out that Shaman on the bench. Getting that extra turn on the Mega Evolution Pokemon is really what makes this deck suddenly get the edge back again against these kind of decks. Now, Mega Gardevoir is still an uphill struggle just because of the resistance. Obviously, that minus 20 is going to hurt quite a bit. But you can kind of chip away at that damage with Fright Knight Yveltal's Pitch Black Spear, and then go into your Evil Ball and start to take prizes that way. But you're going to be able to knock out that Shaman if they put it down, if they can't do anything within that extra turn. So you'll start getting ahead on the prize exchange that way. Also, we have 1 copy of Oblivion Wing Yveltal here. 1 Dark Energy does 30 damage, and you attach a Dark Energy from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. This is good early game if you have to throw away a bunch of Dark Energy into your discard pile, and it's good late game to get energy back out of the discard pile and attach to your Yveltal EX or your Fright Knight, depending on which way you want to go with it. So there's your main attacking line right here. As a matter of fact, it's your only attacking line. Next up here, we have 2 copies of Trubbish. You guys know what 2 copies of Trubbish means. It means we're going to be evolving into these 2 copies of Garbodor. Garbotoxin, if this Pokemon has a Pokemon tool card attached to it, each player's Pokemon in play, each player's hand, and each player's discard pile has no abilities except for Garbotoxin. So this is going to shut down all abilities. Now here's the thing. When you play this deck, you're going to want to be sure that you're either playing Fright Knight or you're playing Garb. You don't want to do both. If your opponent has Mega Evolution Pokemon and you're trying to slow them down from evolving, you're going to want to get Fright Knight to be the ability that's active. You don't want to shut it off with Garbotoxin. Don't go for the early Garb if you're playing Mega Evolution Pokemon. You want to keep this for later on, and either later on or not at all. That's pretty much the choice here against Megas. Now, if you're playing something like Greninja, go for the Garb turn 2, Ultra Ball these into the trash. You don't need these against Greninja. For that, you're gonna use these Pokemon right here, your Yveltal EX and your Oblivion Wing. That's it, that's all you're gonna use, because this isn't gonna do you any good. You can do 60 of the active, but you're not gonna do anything to the bench. Fright Knight doesn't really mean much of anything. It can stop your bursting balloons, they're bursting balloons for the most part, but you really want Garb because you want to make sure they cannot use their water shurikens. That's the most important thing of all. So that's how you're gonna play those matchups. Greninja, Garb. Everything else that's Mega, you're gonna play Yveltal. If it's not Mega and it's not Greninja, you can kind of make your choice depending on what you feel like is the most important. Because you can also shut off Fighting Fury belts with this, and that's going to keep their HP exactly where it is, and they're going to deal that 10 less damage. Or not, instead of dealing the 10 damage more, they're going to be dealing their regular damage, which will be 10 less than what they would if the tool was active. So you can play your matchups the way you want to, just be smart about it. That's the key of this whole thing. Also, we got 2 copies of Shaymin EX. Draw support's very important, of course. Set up as a broken ability. You need it in every single deck, pretty much, except for Greninja. So definitely Shaymin, 2 copies is a must in this deck. That's all the Pokemon. So let's go here to our trainer lineup. Our first supporter we're gonna be looking at here is, of course, Professor Sycamore. Every deck anymore needs 4 copies of Sycamore. I just think it's a standard anymore. Discard your hand, draw a fresh hand to 7. There's no way around it. I mean, maybe you can get away with 3 in a random deck or 2, but 4 Sycamore, you gotta do it. This is a personal preference here. Some people only play 2 in this deck. I prefer 3 because early, if you have a bad hand and you have stuff you don't want to throw away, you don't really want to be stuck with a Sycamore in your hand. This gives you a better opportunity to open up with that first hand N. So there's 3 of them. Also, 2 copies of Lysander because you're able to hit for large numbers with this deck. And if your opponent starts stalling with 1 prize attackers, you can just say, nope, I don't think so. Bring something up that's worth 2 prizes, knock it out. 2 copies of Lysander does that job very well. And I think it's the most aggressive way to play this deck without compromising too much in the way of consistency. We also have 1 copy of Delinquent. This card is absolutely just terrible. I hate this card when it's played against me. I've had it done against me and it's just terrible and so hard to recover from, especially when you have Garb active because there's no more Shaymins, there's no Octilleries. With Delinquent, you're going to discard a stadium card in play. If you do, your opponent discards 3 cards from his or her hand. I've been stuck with a hand to 3 with a Garb active and I can't play my Shaymin or Octillery, whatever I'm playing, and my hand just goes in the trash. You're depending on that top deck to save your life. And most of the time, it's not going to save your life, so it's brutal. Obviously, a lot of people know that Yveltal is good, and a lot of people know that this version of Yveltal is especially good. So people are going to try to counter it, and I think one of the best counters to this deck is going to be Jolteon. So the only way this deck really gets away from Jolteon is playing this card right here, Pokemon Ranger. You're going to be doing a lot of VS Seeker for Pokemon Ranger against Jolteon. Remove all effects of attacks on each player and his or her Pokemon. So this is going to shut off their Flash Ray attack. They're not going to be able to keep you from attacking their side of the field because you're basic. This is going to help you get through it. Not to mention, it'll also help you against the Giratina matchup. If you happen to face any Giratina, you'll be able to attach your Double Colorless Energy, which is also important, but not quite as important as I think about Jolteon. So if you happen to be not playing Jolteon, you can just use this as Ultra Ball fodder and toss it away if you have to. But I think it's good to have in there because I think you're probably going to see some Jolteon. All right, now onto the items. 4 copies of VS Seeker. Get a supporter card out of the discard pile. It's a must. 4 copies, any deck. I don't care who you are. I don't think there's any deck out there that can survive without 4 copies of VS Seeker in this current format, so very important to have that. Also, any deck that plays Shaymin needs 4 copies of Ultra Ball. Unless you're playing something like Greninja where you just run Octillery or nothing at all, you need 4 copies of Ultra Ball. If you have Shaymin, play the 4 copies of Ultra Ball. You have to do it. Another reason why this deck is so good is because of Energy Acceleration, and you're going to get that through 4 copies of Max Elixir. Look at the top 6 cards of your deck and attach a basic energy card you find there to a basic Pokemon on your bench. You can shuffle the other cards back into your deck. So if you pull off a turn 1 Max Elixir and a DCE, your Yveltal is going to be swinging for some serious damage. And if you're going second and you pull that off, your turn 2 is just absolutely broken. You're going 20, 40, 60, 80, and then whatever they've got on there, possibly 90 if you got one of these attached, which we're going to get into here in a moment. It's just so good, so good. So again, as you know, the next card you're going to be looking at here is Fighting Fury Bell. The basic Pokemon this card is attached to gets 40 extra HP, and the attacks do 10 more damage to the opponent's active. So you're not only going to be doing 10 damage more, but you're also going to be getting 40 more HP, putting Yveltal EX at a Mega Evolution Strength 210 HP. That is hard to knock out. That is very hard to knock out, and not many decks can do it, which is why Yveltal is so good. Obviously, you're not going to attach it to this one, but you could attach it here to this Yveltal as well, give it 170 HP, make it EX worthy, but you're mainly going to want to use them on your Yveltal EX. You're going to increase the power of your Evil Ball, and you're going to increase your health in the process, so very good card for this deck. Also, we have Garb, so we need 3 copies of Floatstone, giving it everything that this thing is attached to free retreat, except for this because of Fright Night. But if you have Garb active, well, you could put a Floatstone on there and it'll actually work. But otherwise, it's not going to. This is mainly for Garb, and Shaman if you need to retreat, if someone Lysanders it up and just kind of stalls you out or whatever. We got some 1-ofs in this deck as well. We have a single copy of Escape Rope. Sometimes you're stuck and you can't get out of it. Escape Rope will get you out of it. Also, we have a single copy of Super Rod. Shuffle 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy from your discard pile back into your deck. This can help you increase your odds of hitting Max Elixir if you have these still late game and you've already gone through most of your energy and it's in the discard pile. It can increase your odds of being able to hit those Max Elixirs late game. And it can also bring back Yveltal EXs or whatever you need for later on if you have to throw them away, or if it's just late game and you need Pokemon to start hitting for more damage. That's how you're going to be able to do it. Super Rod is the way to go. I also have 1 Tech Enhanced Hammer in here. You never know when Enhanced Hammer is going to be good for you. It could be game changing, it really can, especially against decks that play low counts of energy, like just special energy only. This can really hurt for at least a turn, sometimes 2, 3, 4, depending. So Enhanced Hammer, I think, is good for a 1-of. This deck also plays 2 stadiums, and they're both going to be Parallel City. You can play it one of 2 ways. You can face it this way to your opponent to make them only have 3 Pokemon available for their bench space. So that means they can't have 5, they can only have 3. And you can also turn it this way, and you will decrease your opponent's attacks from their grass, fire, or water Pokemon by 20 damage. So depending on what you're facing, you have to decide which way you want to go. More times than not, you're going to face it this way. But you never know, if you're playing against Greninja or something, you can face it that way and deal 20, they can deal 20 less damage to you. You can decrease your bench to 3. You don't need a ton of Pokemon on the bench with this deck, so I can see why you might want to do it to yourself, so. All right, last but not least, the energy lineup here. We have Dark Energy. We have 3, 6, 9 of them in total. So 9 Dark Energy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we have 4 double colorless. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you guys go. This deck, I think as is, would be very good to take to Athens. It's just my opinion. I think Yveltal has a good chance. I don't know the exact text that you might want to switch out if you don't like to play this particular playstyle, but that's why the decks are being built. This is just a list that I put together that I think would do well, that I would personally take to Athens if I were playing Yveltal. I don't know what I'm playing yet, so I don't know if I'm playing this or not, but if I were to take this, this is the list that I would take. Just my personal preference, my personal opinion, based upon what I think might be at the event. So you guys can take it for what it is. If you don't think you're gonna see Jolteon, take out the Ranger, whatever. You don't like the Hammer, take it out. Put in here whatever you think is going to work. The only things that I say are probably staples are going to be your Pokemon lineup, your supporter lineup, your VS Seekers, your Ultra Balls, your Max Elixirs, the Fury Belts, and the Float Stones, and your energy count for the most part. You might take 1 out, I don't know. Everything else, I feel like, is free game to just kind of switch up for whatever text you like. Otherwise, I leave it as is. So anyways, guys, I'm not going to go into too much more detail about this deck. It's pretty straightforward, and everybody knows how to play Yveltal at this point. It's been around for such a long time, and it's been around for a long time for a good reason, because it's good. So, hope to see you guys there in Georgia, and I hope you guys do well. And until next time, guys, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys next time. So until then, I'm Professor K for the Pokemon Evolutionaries. You all take care.